Good morning. It's a pleasure to be kicking this off today. I'm going to talk about unlearning within the context of digital advertising and digital communication. And I'm going to be using the word advertising because I still haven't found a better terminology, and actually I kind of like the word. And why digital? Because as we all know, that's pretty much all there is these days. Before I start, this is a bit of an infographic about my career in advertising that bounced all around Europe and the United States. It's actually an industry that I grew up in. It's the only kind of career I've ever known, and I still love it very much. But for the last 5 years, I've been focusing on strategy and innovation and marketing with my company in Berlin, LHBS. I've been in this industry for about 20 years. And not only in terms of advertising, but also now dealing with my clients in terms of innovation, excuse me, and new ideas. This is one of the most profound quotes that I've come across, and it's something that I kind of deal with every single day, which is the problem is never how to get new and innovative thoughts into your head, but how to get the old ones out. So in the context of digital media and marketing, what I want to cover today is kind of like 4 points. What is happening? I don't want to go into a debate of classical communication versus digital, because I think digital is still not getting it right. And I think what you're going to see throughout the rest of the day is how digital can get it right. So I don't think that we're not adapting very well to actually the new paradigms and the new reality of communication. Why is it happening? Exactly because of the quote on the previous slide. We're just kind of not wired to get old stuff out of our heads. And it's a lot more difficult than we actually appreciate. What can we do about it? I think we have to start thinking about not competing for eyeballs and attention and awareness, but on creating customer value. And this is something that I truly believe in, and I think I try to apply it to my business every single day. And if we don't start doing that, I think we're going to start to alienate people, for lack of a better word, to piss consumers off. And we actually have the potential to alienate them and lose them forever. But in closing, I think that what's happening today is actually the beginning of a new creative renaissance. And creativity will become increasingly the most valuable part of business. So what is happening? I think there's not a week or a day that goes by without us reading in the Wall Street Journal, the Harvard Business Review, Fast Company about the demise of the communication industry. Or so a lot of experts say. As I mentioned before, there's a continuous debate about classic communication versus digital communication, but apparently everybody thinks we're all dinosaurs. So the media is calling the old content models and media models out of date and dead. The New York Times has suffered through that. People have called creative agencies actually kind of dinosaurs in the digital day, companies that need to adapt or die, very aggressive language. But actually now digital agencies are being called the new dinosaurs, and even search agencies are becoming the new dinosaurs. So nobody seems to be exempt or saved. And I mean, throughout my entire career in advertising, change has been ongoing. I have to say it was really easy when I started. I kind of liked it. I had to learn a lot of new things, and I had to unlearn a lot of old things. But now more than ever, I think that learning new things has become an imperative. As I said, you can rarely pass a day without hearing something in the news. But I really do believe that our fundamental issue is not with learning new things, but actually with unlearning old things. So why is this happening? Maybe there's psychology behind it. Maybe we just get too good at what we do, that we continue doing it without adapting, without shifting to new paradigms. But I do believe that we're not so wired to unlearn. Marshall McLuhan, who wrote The Gutenberg Galaxy, great kind of sociologist, coined the term the global village, said when a medium first appears, it uses the content of the previous medium until we kind of get the hang of it. Because we don't understand kind of a changing nature and the bespoke capabilities of new media. So I kind of looked into this, and it's quite interesting, and I do kind of like the thought. Going back a little bit in history, as TV emerged with the dawn of audio-visual and the combination of both those things and the potential to tell stories, we actually started to put radio on TV. So that's going back to the thought when a new medium first appears, we use it with old content. This is actually the first ever television spot.
America runs on Bulliver time.
And when we kind of got the hang of that, we said, okay, let's get a little bit more visual with it. So we started to put print on TV. And throughout the late 50s and early 60s, advertising kind of looked like this.
Break away in a Firebird. Break away in a Grand Prix. Break away in a GTO. Break away in a wide track.
You see, every frame is kind of like a magazine page. And it really took a while before we kind of realized that we had a new stage for theater and stories and drama. And some people can actually name the fact that, with the new creative revolution in the 1960s, we started putting copywriters and art directors together in one room to create stories. But it was really the golden age of advertising, and I wish some of it would appear again, because I think it would go massively viral. One of my biggest heroes in advertising is Mary Wells. I think she actually started the creative revolution, not Bill Bernbach. Apologies to anybody from DDB. She said, she did such amazing work. She's actually, by the way, the one that created the I Love New York logo in that entire theme. She talked about theater. She said, I try to get my clients to do big things. She got airlines to paint their planes in rainbow colors, and stewardesses to wear Pucci uniforms and gourmet meals. She actually redefined air travel. But she really, she talked about a time when people loved marketing. She said they got it, they understood it, that we were all having fun with one another. And she talked about that people loved the extra effort that they finally gave when they understood the power of this new medium that had emerged, that they loved the drama, they were expecting the next episode. And the kind of stuff that she pioneered went from that boulevard thing and that silly car kind of advertising to really cool stuff like this.
All right, now let's see if we can find first. No, that's not it. No, believe me, it's in there somewhere.
No matter how rough you treat a rebel, it's awfully hard to hurt it. A survey of professional driving schools shows that they use more of our cars than any other kind.
How am I doing?
A lot better than yesterday. Turn left.
I can't do it while you're watching me.
Okay, turn left.
Here!
How does it feel the first time out in traffic, Mr. Moss? Mr. Moss? Mr. Moss?
Look out for the truck!
What truck?
Behind the bus!
What bus?
The Rebel has held its own against some of the worst drivers in the world.
Should I turn the windshield wiper on?
At this point, it looks like the rebels are going to outlast the teachers.
So we had like 20 years of really good stuff. And then with the dawn of digital, and with all the debate over the value of digital versus traditional creativity, like I said, I think digital is here, it's ubiquitous, it's not going away. But I think we're still not leveraging to its full potential, because with the dawn of the internet, we started to put billboards actually on the internet. And now, I mean, I don't really understand this headline, whether they're talking about rugby or football or Khan, but I can't even see the headline because of all the pollution around it. And with all due respect to the brand that's here, you know, I'm not sure what your experience is, but when you're trying to read an article or watch a video on YouTube or something like this, the stuff kind of gets in the way. And it's very different from the old days when there was a commercial on TV and I could get up off my couch, run over to the fridge and get a beer or a glass of wine. There's no escaping from this. I have to deal with this while I'm consuming my content. And, you know, the remote control, which was like the big revolution and the big disruptor in the creative industry, was invented 60 years ago, but we still have a modern version of it. And it's skip this ad. I don't know how your face lights up when you see this on your video, but it, you know, like, what's the assumption here? The assumption here is the stuff that you're going to see is not interesting enough for you to be forced to spend more than 3 or 4 seconds on it. And people are getting really annoyed. There's always been an implied agreement between content providers and content consumers, which is, we'll give you cool stuff as long as you actually accept the advertising that's around it. But in digital, this is very different, as I mentioned, of walking away from a commercial or sitting down and enjoying it or flipping a page and continuing with my content. So a blogger actually did the math on how digital advertising, when it's not practiced creatively, can really destroy the user experience. So he wrote a bit of code to measure the size of a blog post with and without advertising, and on iMore, which is the Mac blog. So I think this is really fascinating. A 537-word blog post should weigh about 200 kilobytes. When all the advertising is put around it in its most uncreative form, which is a bit of like clickbait, that page weighs 14 megabytes. 14 megabytes makes your page jump. God forbid there's an autoplay video in there that you don't know how to turn off, or a completely irrelevant piece of information embedded in the middle of an article. 14 megabytes messes with your user experience. 14 megabytes is the equivalent of 7 million words. 7 million words are equivalent to 10 Bibles. And this is what happens to a 537-word blog post. And if we kind of don't do anything about this and really immerse ourselves into this kind of creative renaissance and think about creatively engaging with consumers again, things are going to kind of not go well for the entire industry. Back in '98, Eric Schmidt said that the internet, the customer service, is actually the killer app of the web. And nowhere else, in no other medium, has creating value for the consumer been more possible and actually more necessary. Because actually, when we started with like online stuff, it started out really good. In 1994, a team from AT&T kind of wondered, how could we actually be of service to people rather than sell them stuff? And this is the first banner ever actually aired or placed on the internet. The guy that actually did this, he's like 45 or something like this now, and he told his son, like a millennial, he said, it's like, yeah, I invented the first ever banner ad. And he wrote in a really interesting article that his son looked at him as if he'd invented the plague or something. But this was actually a brilliant piece of work. It had a 44% click rate. Yes, novelty played a lot with it. But by saying, please click here, what the audience got and what the user got was a virtual tour of the world's greatest museums. Not pop-up pictures, but literally a virtual tour of the Art Institute of Chicago, the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, the Louvre. And it was created by AT&T, who had a mission to transport people through time and space via the internet. And I thought that was a really nice start. So I think going back to kind of like this really, really good first case study, that we need to unlearn the notion of let's go where people are and show them stuff. Because if we do nothing, people are exercising their power to go from this experience to this experience. I'm not sure how many people here use ad blockers. There's a lot in the news lately, especially with the launch of the new the iOS in September. This is the share of internet users using ad blockers as of Q2 in 2015. Poland is at 35%. Countries like Greece are close to 40%. With certain cohorts like millennials and Generation Z, those numbers in some countries go up to 45%. So can you imagine marketing to the digital natives who are using digital to put up a block because they can? And I'm not sure if you know exactly how ad blockers work, but it's basically a free plugin that I can download. It blocks everything. No Facebook ads, no YouTube pre-rolls, no banners, nothing. You have a purely clean experience. And when you have that purely clean experience, you kind of don't go back. I don't think anybody that's using ad blockers suddenly has an epiphany and said, oh my God, I missed those banners. And it's an increasing trend. So the total monthly users globally, as of June 2015, were close to 200 million. 200 million. That is estimated to equal at about $22 billion in advertising revenue lost. In less than 24 hours after the launch of the new iOS, it's interesting to see that ad blockers were shooting up in the App Store. So, I'm actually back. So this really creates a very vicious circle, and I really don't know where it's going to end up. As I said, there's always been an implicit kind of agreement between content providers and consumers about, we'll give you really cool stuff if you kind of like also accept the advertising. When people opt out, they're opting out, and also not only in terms of ad blockers and features and plugins, but also things like paying premium for Spotify Premium to have the music without the ads. I'm sure you've heard about YouTube Red, which is now a monthly subscription for advertising-free content. People buying into Netflix. People are paying money to opt out. What's going to happen in terms of newspapers, blogs, and other content, as soon as they start losing the eyeballs, they're going to start losing the advertisers. When they lose the advertisers, they will not be able to support journalists, content producers, and I really don't know where the entire thing is going to end up. Hence, I think that creativity is more important than ever in creating real connections with consumers and delivering consumer value and creating content that people actively seek out and enjoy. Just a little side note, Bild is an online newspaper in Germany. Germans being Germans, apologies to any Germans. You can actually track ad blockers, so you know who's using it and who's not using it. So the Bild, the newspaper, one of the largest ones owned by Axel Springer in Germany, decided to block content to anybody that was blocking ads. And this goes into such dangerous territory that mimics and kind of echoes what happened with the music industry, and they still haven't solved it. So AdBlock Plus is actually a free feature. They do development, they financially survive via donations from users. So it's on a pure donation service. Build blocked content for ad blockers on the 12th of October. By the 13th of October, the donations to AdBlocker Plus quadrupled. So full support of the system. So this kind of war with consumers is also not a way out. And I keep kind of reiterating the point that it's really creativity that's going to save us. So let's go back to what we might do about it. A lot of people are talking about content. I do believe that content serving commerce, is the future actually of communication and marketing. And one of my favorite sayings, which is actually coined by a company called Smithery in London, is let's think about making things that people want rather than making people want things. So deliver value, find an audience, and create for them. And create content. I'm using some very simple examples. You're going to see amazing creative work throughout the day. But, things that inspire and educate people, like Being Girl from P&G, that creates conversations that people seek out. It gets millions and millions of voluntary views on YouTube. Rethink Stories, Johnny Walker, Prada, creating 9-minute films. Think about what you can do in short format video on Snapchat, Instagram-supported stuff. Rethink Stories. Make useful stuff. I think being useful and brand utility is also a key driver of marketing. All Things Hair is a platform from Unilever. They just kind of realized that women were searching for tips on how to do their hair. And no brand owned that territory on YouTube. It was all amateurs and vloggers. So they created a platform called All Things Hair. It's not advertising, it's tips. It's useful stuff to help women have cool hair. Millions of monthly users. Let your service be your message. It's interesting to think about what you can do in digital, but it's also really interesting to think about what you can do with digital. FMCG brands are branching out and creating new related services around their products, like L'Oreal Genius app. Very simple, very brilliant. It's basically customizing, makeup to your face. Take a picture of your face. You can play around with different things and different looks and different styles. If I see an ad for lipstick within this context, I like it, I want it, because that's exactly what I'm searching for at the time. So I guess in closing, my point would be, let's relearn the importance of customer value, relevance, rather than just exposure, and let's practice creativity. And I think we need to practice creativity with media planners, practice creativity with media owners, and with brand stakeholders. And to use our imaginations and keep asking ourselves how might we be of service in terms of creating or enhancing products through digital, through communication, as well as services. How can we create better experiences that people actively seek out? And how can we make better communication that doesn't actually make people run away, but run towards it and engage with it? And since I started with a quote, might as well finish with a quote. Alvin Toffel is a futurologist and an academic in the digital age and digital transformation. I quite like this quote, that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Thank you.